I'm Mike Davis. Many of you know me as, well, a contactee or alien abductee. I've had a lot of experiences in my life. And one of my explained before was when I was taken aboard a craft and I was introduced to a bunch of aliens. There were all different types of grays and blues. And there were some blues and they were holding a baby in their hands. And I couldn't understand the reason why I was being introduced to a baby. They did a lot of things when I was on that craft. They put a deep syringe into my head here, which has left a mark for, well, all of my life. It's never gone away. Uh, they put another deep syringe or a device into my spine. Um, and I was terrified on the craft, but I kept being intrigued by these blue aliens, and they're little short guys. I don't know. They're not, I'm just referring to them as guys, but they were holding a little blue baby. It looked like a baby, and I was wondering, what the heck is this about? So, I thought a lot about this whole incident and everything else, and it was a long incident. I don't want to get into that particular incident, but the baby, I couldn't figure out what it was about and why I was, well, being introduced to it. Well, on April 1st of this year, 2022, I was deep in sleep, and I went into a spot. It's like I left and went into this place, and all of a sudden it was very dark. I want to explain this because it's pertinent to what I'm talking about with this baby. It was a very dark space, and then all of a sudden I wound up in what it would seem to be some sort of boat and some sort of river, and there were other beings actually operating this boat. They weren't rowing it or anything. It was just moving, and I'm guessing they were using their telepathic ways or their abilities to move this boat. And well, we're going down this very dark river, and there was trees all around both banks. I couldn't make out the trees; it was so dark. And then all of a sudden, I went through, like, it was like a canal, and it was dark in there too. But it turned from trees to rocks, all cliffs, all the way around. And these cliffs had like holes in the sides of the cliffs. And this boat that I was on, or whatever it was, I don't know. It seemed more like a canoe to me in a lot of ways. But this canoe that I was on, it went down one of these cliffs into a tunnel, and we weren't falling, but it was just gliding down this tunnel, and it was dark. And I'm just like, we're looking around and everything, but I couldn't see much because it was so dark, and all I could see were these beings in front of me and in back of me. And the next thing I remember was this boat going upward, yes, upward against the river, and all of a sudden I'm in a dark room, and appears before me is this blue being. I'm trying to explain her the best I can, and I'm saying her because that's what it was. And she says, "I've been waiting to meet you," telepathically, of course. And I'm thinking, "Who are you?" And she says, "I'm your daughter." I said, "My daughter? My daughter's here on Earth. You don't look anything like my daughter." And she transfers to me, and she says, "You remember the incident when you were on a craft and you were presented a little blue baby?" And I said, "Yes, I do." She says, "That was me." She says, "That I am your child. I am your adult child." And I asked, "Who are you? What's your name?" And she says, "We don't have names here." She says, "We just know who each other are." And when I'm looking at her, I'm trying to give it an accurate description of it because it was very bizarre. It was a very small being. She was very slender, very slender. She was almost like scales. They looked like scales for skin, but she had legs, and she had breasts. She had hair, what appeared to be hair, and she was very pretty. She had a bluish skin, and the aura around her was like a pink. And I don't know how to liken it to anything because I've never really seen anything quite like it, but very alien. And I said, "What is your name?" And she said, "We don't have names." And she started transferring to me all the things that have happened to me, and where she came from they were doing the experiments on me, and they were taking DNA is what they were, and they had been for a very long time, and they created her. And once again, I asked again, "What's your name?" Because we're so used to names because we're humans. They must have names, but no name. So we kind of shared thoughts back and forth. It was just a very bizarre, intriguing incident. Um, I asked them if they eat food, and she said, "We don't need to eat food." And I said, "What keeps you alive?" "We're alive by life, and it's in itself. We don't need substance to, like you do, to keep our bodies going. Our bodies just keep going." So it got very in depth. I asked, why did your family, if that's who you were with there on that craft, why did they take part of me to create life? And she says, I'll refer to her as she because she was very feminine, okay? And she says, this is how we create life. We create life everywhere, and this is how we do it. We take parts of other beings, other animals, people like you, and we create new life, all different lives. And I happen to be a byproduct of you. And I had this is her saying to me, that she had a want to meet me because she only met me as a baby and didn't have memories of meeting me. So this is why I was taken here to meet her. And it was just intriguing. I don't know what else to say. It's just fascinating to actually come across this I don't know what to call her, alien, humanoid. I really don't know what to refer to her as because it's very vague. They don't eat. They're similar. They look like humans. She had hands and arms and fingers, but in legs, she had everything a human does, but they didn't have human skin. Her skin was just, I liken it, what I've likened it to somebody else, my wife actually that I referred to when I was telling her this when I woke up the next morning, was almost like an aquatic being. It seemed very aquatic, and that makes a lot of sense when I think back, because I remember on that same property where where I was taken, and that was in Sonoma County, and I was taken up in that craft. I also had another experience on my way to work where I came walking down and through the field where our cottage was on the hill, and it was really early in the morning, like 5 o'clock in the morning, and as I get to my car and go to unlock the door, I look above, and all of a sudden comes gliding across the top of me is a giant triangle craft with one orange dome at the bottom of it. And I'm just sitting there mesmerized. And all of a sudden, I just felt weird. And then it just took off and went off over the mountains over toward Bodega, the bay or ocean there. And I get in my car and I'm just all bewildered. And obviously I had missing time because I left my house at like 5 a.m. And now I'm looking at my clock in my car and it's 5:30. No, and they're always the same time. I do this deliberately so I know what time I'm getting to work and whatever. But it was 5:30. So there's a half hour missing time. And later on, I have memories of being on this craft and going over the mountains. And you can see right through the whole bottom. It was a giant craft. It was as wide as our property, which is monstrous. And I remember flying out to the coast and going down into the water and seeing everything under the oceans and going deeper down into what are called underwater worlds. And that's pretty much what I remember, that going down there. I remember the inside of the craft. I remember it being like a big cargo. It was like filled with things, almost like provisions. That's the best way to put it. And like a supply craft of some sort, taking whatever it is down to where it was going. But I'm bringing this up because I likened the girl, the lady that I met, and my wife and I said I feel weird calling her a lady, and Susie says, "Why don't you call her Star?" And I said, "That fits." I said, "It makes so." I'm going to start referring to her as Star, okay? Because they don't use names like I stated, but I like to refer to beings with names. You do with dogs, cats, what have you. Okay, you got whatever name you call your kitty or your mouse or whatever. But it's the same with humans naming their baby. Okay, and so I call her Star now. Okay, because she introduced herself as my child. Okay, and she was being presented to me back in the '80s, almost like a child. And I wasn't sure, but she was a blue baby. But anyway, she's told me a lot of things about how they live and what they do. And basically, they live everywhere and they populate planets everywhere. That's we humans came from them. And once this is what's being related. I know I say told because that's how I say when somebody told me something or they said to me. If I say they said or this and that, they're not saying, they're relating, and it's coming in by telepathic means. But they populate worlds everywhere. They aren't space travelers as you think. They're more dimensional beings, and they do travel through space also. But they travel through dimensional portals. This is how they get from world to world and to where they need to be. That's why they can get there very fast, and they don't have to traverse long distances like humans do when they go to space. It would take some days just to get to the moon. Okay, where these beings to go way out in the universe. It's a matter of just traversing through a hole into this space-time fabric, and they're there, and they bring 2 points together, and they slip out the other side. And I'm sorry if you're hearing sirens and things like here, because I live right next to the 101 freeway, and this is kind of hard to record here because of that. I can't get away from it no matter what I do. They still hear the noises, so you're going to hear them on the camera. So I wanted to explain why you're hearing sirens and cars and things like that going by if you're hearing them. But I just found it very intriguing that I finally was able to meet Star. And what she did do is she brought me to a part. And when they bring me, we don't walk. I didn't walk. All of a sudden, I'm there in a part where they have other beings that are being gestated from other people, humans, other races, other extraterrestrial races, races from wherever you could even imagine, that are all being bred underground, wherever we were, and where all those rivers went to. They could even be underneath the earth in some sort of aquatic world, like I went in with that triangle craft. But I wished I could have been there longer, and I'm sure more stuff will come back about this very, and I want to say very kind, very gentle, very kind, very sweet being I call Star. And it explains a lot of things about that night when I was taken into that orange sphere and I was introduced to, well, that baby when I don't know if you can see it on this camera, the hole in my forehead there where they put a long syringe in. I also had a hole down in my pubic region where they had also implanted that I'm guessing or took more fertile material. I also had another one put up my spine. And all of this stuff, I have x-rays from Kaiser Permanente because I had a fractured neck at one point. And all this stuff is showing up on the x-rays too. I also had a sinus infection back in the, I want to say, 90s. And I was taken to another hospital. And when they took the x-rays, the doctor said, "I have your x-rays back." He says, "Well, I'm finding something really weird." He said, "I wonder what this is in your head." He says, "Looks like did you have surgery in your sinus cavities up in your head?" I go, "Not that I remember." He said, "You sure?" I said, "I think I would remember something like that. I've had surgery." And he goes, Huh, he says, it's peculiar. It doesn't belong there. But that's when they put that device up my nose. Um, but I'll be back with more information, but I want to share this, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for watching.